Hello once again, readers of good books. My name is Nick Pell, and this is once again coming from my white room. Now, today I'm reviewing another James DeSantis book, and this is his first actual book, not short story. This is a book other than his Exterminator series. So, this is Spark. This book just came out today as of when this review is going up, and so let's talk about it. As always, there are going to be just very minor spoilers in this first half of the review, and then I'll dive into more of the ending of the book towards the latter half of the video. So if you have read Sparks, then you can watch that bit, unless you don't care about spoilers. So there's that. Now, diving right into it, the book's main character is a guy named Ethan Hamil, and he's in about his 20s, and he has cancer. This is something which is brought up right away in the story itself. In the first couple chapters of the book, he kind of dives into his life before the central events of the novel, just leading to the terrible things that are happening with his life. He breaks up with his girlfriend, he finds out he has cancer, and just a bunch of other things just occur in his life, and it just kind of sucks for a little bit. And then one night, randomly, he ends up with these electric powers, and he is able to use them much like a superhero, and he ends up going out and trying to save people, and that's what the majority of the book is him going around and saving people and using his powers for good, while we also get to dive into what he's thinking during the time. The book is written in the past tense because Ethan in the story is writing about his life, so he's writing about these events, and so we know that he makes it out of all the situations he gets into A-okay because he's writing about them, and so that kind of takes away a little bit of the suspense of it, I suppose, just for the fact that I was never really worried if he was going to survive or not. Each chapter is split into two different sections. First is the section of Ethan talking about his life and what led up to him becoming the superhero known as Sparks, and just the events that played out during his time doing that. And then the other half are interviews, which his friend Alex, who is essentially like his sidekick slash the guy who helps him train and designs his costume and all this stuff, he is doing interviews with people who have been affected by Sparks and who have been saved by Sparks, and it's just kind of a neat kind of balance. The only thing I might say about that is that a lot of the situations which are described as happening in the interviews, we don't actually get to see play out through Ethan's perspective, and I understand that he does a lot of things within the year span that he has to live after he finds out he has cancer. It would have been nice to see his perspective on a lot of the events which are described in the interviews themselves. So those are the main characters, and that's the central plot, so let's get into themes. First theme, obviously, is death, and not just the general people die and it's sad type of thing. It's how one reacts to death, or death sentence, as Ethan does when he realizes that, oh hey, I have cancer and I have a little over a year to live. It's a matter of deciding what one is going to do with the time that they have, and if they're going to use it to the greatest extent possible, or if they're going to just wait around until death comes and eventually claims them. And it's just a really interesting topic which is touched on a lot of times in this story in terms of Ethan deciding if it's even worth doing what he's doing. And then just the idea of superheroes and doing the right thing, and just a modern take and a realistic take on the superhero world is also really interesting to dive into, and it's really done well in DeSantis' story. So in terms of enjoyment, I really did enjoy Sparks a lot. I think that it is a good story to read. As of now, it's the only one that is going to come out set in this universe, I suppose. Unless he decides to write a sequel, which it could potentially set up by the end of the book. This is probably the last we will see of Ethan Hamil and a lot of the people that he interacts with in the story. That being said, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I'd appreciate it immensely. Make sure to go and buy my own short story called The Bridge down in the description down here. There will be a link to it down there for you. I'll be talking about the ending of Sparks right now, so if you have not read the end of the book and you don't care about spoilers, keep watching. If you do care about spoilers, probably stop watching here and come back later. So towards the end of the book, he does get back together with his girlfriend V, and it's all hunky-dory there. But there is a gangster who has been on the hunt for him, has put a $100,000 bounty on Ethan's head, and This is a guy just known as Billy. There's no other real background to him besides just a small interview that Alex was able to do with his friend. So we end up in a bank heist situation, and this is more or less the setup for the death of Sparks in terms of just a major situation which seems to claim his life. Billy is in there, he's shooting people without any remorse or regret, and just doing this to lure Sparks out of hiding so that he can confront him and try to fight him and take him out. And this obviously does work, especially when they start executing people live on television. This gets Ethan really angry. At this point, he's trying to stay out of the limelight and trying to not to use his Sparks outfit and going out and doing stuff because he's becoming really weak because of the cancer. And so he doesn't want to risk his life when he doesn't know for sure if he'll actually make it out alive, or if there's not really a good chance that he's going to be strong enough to fight off these guys. But he goes in anyway because he has to try to do something, or else all these people are going to die. So he goes in, there's a big confrontation, he gets stabbed in the back, and it seems like he might actually get killed here, but obviously, like I said earlier, we know that he makes it out alive of this because he's writing all these events that are happening. It's actually really smart how he ends up getting out of the situation and saving the day, because once Billy gets close to him, he's able to put his hand on the bomb, absorb all the energy from it, and then use that energy to use an electric current to basically deactivate all of the guns that are being used by the henchmen, and thus the hostages are able to rise up and take down their oppressors, and Billy just gets his head bashed in. That's a little bit satisfying because he killed a kid, and so the guy deserves to get what he got. It would appear that Sparks is going to die, but obviously he does not. The hospital tells people that he is, so the public believes that he is dead, and Ethan essentially just lives out the rest of his days with Vanessa and Alex and his family. That's more or less how the story ends. There's some conclusion and some concluding bits where he kind of wraps up the story. Vanessa ends up being pregnant, and so there's that whole ordeal, and that's kind of what I think could potentially be a setup into a sequel if DeSantis chooses to do one, in terms of maybe the child of Ethan just having these electric powers from the get-go and being able to grow up with them and use them to their full extent, kind of like an Infamous-esque type of situation. And I don't know, I think that it could be kind of a neat thing if his child took on his legacy. And yeah, I don't know, I think it'd be neat. Whether or not this happens or not, I don't know. We've seen that James is willing to combine his stories into the same universe before, and so I think it could be an interesting factor if the events of Sparks were kind of happening before some of his other stories, and then they kind of played into one grand story later on. That's my thoughts. I don't know. I liked it. I thought that it was a good story. It was a realistic superhero story, I suppose, in terms of what someone would do if they had cancer and they had superpowers. I think that they would, in real life, use the powers to the full extent that they could and try to do as much good as possible in these last days that they had. That's my thoughts. Leave your thoughts on Sparks down in the comments down below. I'd love to hear them and discuss the book itself with you. As always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I'd appreciate it immensely. And once again, mega people, my name is Nick Pell, and as always, keep on reading.